purple smoke up in the sky. Pretty soon you'll learn to fly. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where I'm gonna go when the volcano blows. Well, Michael quickly say to me, Mon, you better watch your feet. Lava come down soft and hot. You're loving me now or loving me not. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where I'm gonna go when the volcano comes. Oh, no time to count for what it's worth. 'Cause I just left this planet Earth. Where I go, I hope there's rum. I know there's gonna be a lot on the island tomorrow. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where I'm gonna go when the volcano blows. Well, I don't wanna land in New York City. I wanna land no Mexico. Don't wanna land no Three Mile Island. Don't wanna see my skin blow. Don't wanna land Comanche, Skyport, or in Nashville, Tennessee. Don't wanna land no San Juan Airport or the Yukon Territory. Don't wanna land no San Diego. Don't wanna land no Buzzards Bay. Don't wanna land no Isle of Florida. I got nothing more to say. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where I'm gonna go when the volcano blows. No, 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 no.
All right. Let's make sure this is actually working now.
Well, I don't know. I
Perfect. Okay. We got it working.
That's it.
Yep. Looks good.
All right.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for rolling with me, Chris. I appreciate it. Working through a couple technical difficulties here. We've got to switch up our internet for the show. So thank you guys for being patient. Let me know if you're seeing this. I think there's about a minute or two delay as we get this working. But so excited to do this show, Chris. We get to do this every Thursday night, and it's a ton of fun, man. Typically, we're doing this live. We get a bunch of comments going through, have a bunch of folks following it. I know they'll get a chance to watch this. If you're watching it live, let me know. Type in the comments so we can work through any of the internet troubles. But even not if they're watching it recorded, still a lot of great conversations had right here in this room, and I'm excited for the one we're going to have, man, because I know we've put together a lot. I did want to tell you real quick about a couple of the sponsors that help make it possible. They help fund what we're doing. They pay for the lights and the cameras and all that stuff. Panhandle Shop is one. So this is Tom and Helen Tuttle. These guys own a shop where they do a lot of woodworking. They build all kinds of beautiful stuff. So you can see here, like these flags that they make. Incredible. They do tables and chairs and all kinds of artwork and designs. Really, really cool stuff. So
I think I've seen that on Facebook.
have you? Yeah, the Panhandle Shop is on Facebook. You've also got their email. Nancy just jumped in. She said the sound is okay. Cool. Thank you so much, Nancy. Yes, so we had to switch internets up. First time we've ever had to do that for the show, so I appreciate you rolling with us on that. We'll see if we get, I know Tom was watching earlier as well, so we'll get him in here as well. Stripes and Andy D's, I don't know if you know these. I know you've been in Navarre several times, Chris, but these are two of the best restaurants you'll find right here in Navarre. Stripes is right down the street here, right off 98 by the Publix. Amazing. They got a whole bunch of different types of food there. Specials every weekend. You got burgers and wings, great beer on tap. A lot of good stuff there at Stripes. Robert Reyes owns it, and he does a fantastic job.
All right.
And then Andy D's is one of the best seafood places that you'll find around Navarre, and it's happening. It's on the beach. They've got bingo nights, and they've got all kinds of trivia. They got bands coming through. I mean, all kinds of events, going away parties for the military, you name it. Like all
Sounds
car
good.
shows, all that kind of stuff. So if you get time in Navarre, definitely hit these places up.
So Stripes is right down.
Stripes, yeah,
Okay.
it's right down the street on 98, and then Andy's is right across that bridge if you just keep going.
Cool.
One of the other sponsors that's near and dear to our hearts is the Veterans Treatment Court. So this is Carmen Reynolds, a mutual friend of ours,
I know
somebody we both
Carmen.
look up to. She's an amazing person, and the Veterans Treatment Court just got approval from Ron DeSantis to be implemented in Santa Rosa County. And what this does is it's essentially a support for veterans who are in a tough spot. So veterans who find themselves picked up by the law for any type of an offense, they get a special examination and then some special treatment as they go through the legal process to help
That's
get them
cool.
back on their feet. So they serve their time, they do all those things that's required by law, and then we look at, hey, is this person in the spot because potentially service-related conditions, that type of thing. How do we get them back into a good spot? Because we know that they were there when they were serving our country, right? So
Absolutely.
Scambia has this, and then Okaloosa has it, but Santa Rosa County did not. And so Carmen's the one who made that argument, said, wait a minute, why don't we have this here? It's working so well.
Right.
These other two counties should be here. So love that. And then she's a huge sponsor and supporter of the show. So
I never knew that.
yeah, it's an incredible effort. So it's just now going to a good spot. So Nancy, let me know if that sound is still coming through as well. And then if you can help me share the show in a couple different places. Normally I get a chance to do that, but not tonight. The whole reason we do this show, Chris, is we love to celebrate local heroes. That's really what it comes down to, is we love to let people know about the people that make Navarre what it is. Because everybody knows the beaches. We're going to talk about that today. Everybody knows this is one of the most beautiful places on God's green earth. But they may not know the type of people that make up Navarre. A lot of military folks, for sure. We've got our war heroes. I mentioned Robert Reyes. That's a photo of him right there when he was serving. We got NFL players who came from Navarre. Jordan Jefferson is one. Michael Carter is another one. These guys are playing on Sundays in the NFL. Went to Navarre High School. We've got, I mentioned the other war heroes. I mean, another one is Rick Landreth, amazing guy. In the movie Black Hawk Down, they portray him. He's one of the real life people that they portrayed in that movie.
All right.
So grew up right north of Navarre. Kevin Lucas is another one. We've got people that do separate stuff besides the military. We've got entrepreneurs in Navarre. Kevin is in the medical field. I could mention Elizabeth Kurz and a whole bunch of other people that make up the Chamber of Commerce who do really great work, and I love that. So really fun place, but this show gives us a chance to interview them, talk to them, and learn more about the community and to hopefully help.
Yeah, I've watched several of your.
Yeah, I appreciate it,
several
man.
of
Yeah, I know you have. It's been a fun journey to kind of set this up and learn about all this stuff, but it also gives us the ability to cover a wide range of topics. And I
Right.
can't wait to talk about you and the things that you're doing as a flood defender. I love the shirt, by the way. I got to tell you, like, as an
I got
Alabama
one
fan,
for you
I love
I
the
got
red.
one in the car.
Okay, I might
Yeah,
take that
sure.
from you and start wearing it around myself because, we talked about the beaches of Navarre. They make it beautiful. Everybody who's lived here for more than a year or two
Right.
knows that with Gulf Coast living, you've also got an enormous amount of rainfall. I remember seeing statistics that Pensacola's in the top few cities in the country in terms of rainfall, and we're right down the street here.
Well, actually, Mobile, Scamby, and Santa Rosa County would get the highest national rainfall
yeah,
totals in the nation.
I believe
annual totals in
I
the
believe
nation.
it. Yeah.
It
Wow.
mainly more toward Mobile, but we're
Yeah.
right here in this area get the most rainfall annually in the
I
nation.
believe it, Chris. And we've experienced it before in Hurricane Sally, and I'm sure there's going to be more on the way that are going to hit us. And even without the hurricanes, just the storms that come through and all that stuff, it's a daily reality. But before we get to all that stuff, I want to know about you, man. I love doing this and just getting to know people and taking the time to really understand where they come from, what motivates them, all that stuff. So I pulled this one from your social media here. That's a great photo. That's you and your wife, right?
Yeah, that's me and my wife there. That's an older picture, but
Yeah.
I've been in Pensacola about 30 years,
Yeah.
a little over 30 years. I'm
Yeah.
originally from Selma, Alabama.
Yeah.
I grew up in Selma and went to college at junior college in Selma, and then
Okay.
I transferred to Auburn University.
Okay.
Got a civil engineering degree from Auburn University and
Yeah.
graduated in 1991 and ended up down here. There was a girl that I dated when I was in college.
Yeah.
She had a condo down here in Pensacola.
Yeah.
I just ended up down here, and I've been here ever since. But
Yeah, I feel you, man. So I lived in Tuscaloosa when I was a little kid, right? So the other side of the state. But I grew up loving Alabama, but we would always come down here for vacations.
Oh, yeah.
And then my family ended up moving up further away to Memphis, Tennessee, and that's where I went to middle school and high school and all that stuff. But we always came down here, and I remember this place is just so beautiful. It was peaceful. It was the best vacations we had, and just I remember being a kid and just realizing, hey, there's people who live here,
Right, right.
And then my dad was like, yeah, there's an Air Force base down the street, and I never forgot that. And when time came for me to pick my bases on all that stuff, every time I put in for this place, and I eventually got it after a
Right.
couple tries.
Well, that's good.
And it's exactly what I hope. So where do you
Well,
live
that's
now?
how I ended up here.
Oh, really? Okay.
My folks we used to camp in Destin quite a bit. They
Yeah.
had a fifth wheel camper, and I was like, when I grow up, I'm moving.
This
to
is where you
Florida.
want to be.
So,
Yeah, why
you know.
not? You could do so much worse.
So-
So where are you at now? Where are you living now?
I live in Escambia County.
Okay.
I worked for Escambia County Engineering Department
Yeah.
for 25 years.
Yeah.
And I lost my job after Hurricane Sally. Long story. I won't even get into it. This guy called me up. His name's Jay Faison. He's the chairman of the American Flood Coalition. He's a philanthropist. And the American Flood Coalition, they do a lot of advocacy work at federal and state level. I could go a lot into that. But he wanted to found flood defenders and set up flood defenders
Yeah.
here in the Panhandle
Yeah.
because we're one of the areas that gets the highest rainfall.
Yeah, because I've seen you involved in so many things in Santa Rosa County. Like I've seen you up there at the county building, talking to the commissioners about stuff. I've seen you working with all kinds of like different groups and stuff like that. And so I was actually surprised, like I was like, oh, he's from Escambia. But I mean, you're more of like a regional expert because like you were just talking about, you understand what the entire region is facing some of these issues, not just one county or the other. Yeah.
Well, Flood Defenders, we have a Facebook page. It's Flood Defenders Panhandle.
Yeah.
And while I'm set up to cover the whole Panhandle, as far as I've made it is Okaloosa County. I really hadn't went to any meetings there, but I've had some Flood Defender friends over there that's hit me up on take a look at this subdivision plan. Tell me what you think about it.
Yeah.
You know, Okaloosa County, they use Atlas 14 rainfall data. That's
Right.
the most accurate rainfall data that's available, and that's something Escambia County and Santa Rosa County, Escambia County's looking at it, and maybe Santa Rosa County if we get a couple of new commissioners in there. But
Yeah. We're going to talk about that for sure, and just kind of what Santa Rosa County faces and how it's connected to, how it's governed and things like that. But the Flood Defenders, so it's a nonprofit, right? It's nonpartisan.
Right.
It's an effort, and I said it right here. It's fighting for flood victims and communities at risk. And obviously, communities at risk, that's what you're talking about. Like, we're living in it, all
Right.
of us are in this area. So it's something that people know. How did you personally, though? Is this, you mentioned the civil engineering and all that stuff. Has it always been a passion for you?
Well, stormwater is what I've done for 30 years. Well, more than that.
Yeah.
But stormwater with Escambia County is what I've done for 25 years
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah.
In the last 3, I've been doing this with Flood Defenders. Working in the government, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But I've reviewed plans for I was on the development review committee for like 7 years. All the subdivisions and commercial site plans that come in, I reviewed those in Escambia County. Inspected them. Had inspectors that worked for me. I worked 7 years in construction management.
Yeah.
I got pushed over into construction management doing projects. Long story, but
Yeah.
I upset a couple of developers. I mean, that's real easy to do if you're in development review. And they moved me to construction management. And then the last 7 years, I worked as a stormwater engineering manager.
Yeah.
You preparing
It really
budgets.
has been. It's been a lifelong passion for you.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
been
I mean,
your specialty for sure.
I embrace stormwater. A lot of my flood defenders. I've got one lady over in Escambia County. Her and her husband, they've been to, what'd you say, 30 board meetings?
Yeah.
Maybe it's 40
Yeah.
board meetings. That includes town hall meetings.
Yeah. Got it.
And she's got a couple of couple of projects going on over there in Escambia County that out of those meetings. And the way it works is the neighborhoods get together. They talk to, I have a designated neighborhood team leader. And because I can't talk to everybody.
Right.
You know, and that team leader for that neighborhood gets their neighborhood involved. I give them T-shirts. I give them signs that say I'm a flood defender.
Yeah.
We go to board meetings and we engage the county.
See, because the challenge is for you, it's this passion, right? It is your specialty, what you've been doing. For the everyday folks, we don't think about it until something like this happens, right? when that occurs, you know, you think about like today. Today was a beautiful day. I was thinking about it. You know, you and I are going to be talking about flooding tonight, but the entire day it was really, I mean, it's hot, but it was really pretty with, you know, a few clouds here and there. Nobody's really thinking about stormwater mitigation or any of those things. But then it can change on a dime, and all of a sudden you go through your yard, you know, and you're seeing this.
That's 2969 PGA Boulevard.
Yeah.
The lady there, Andrea Martinosis.
Yeah.
I can go into that now if you want me to.
Sure, go right ahead.
But Andrea, she lived there. She's a single mom. I think it was during Sally. They built 2 houses right next door to her, and they were vacant lots.
Yeah.
And that area actually held the stormwater for that road. About 9 driveways down through there. And toward the end, I'll show you one of the ideas I came up with a solution for. But she doesn't live there now. She moved out. I think she's living up in Virginia somewhere. She filed a lawsuit against the builders.
Yeah, how they build it.
But it really wasn't the builders' fault. I mean, the builders are going to do what the county allows them to do.
Right. I've heard that I've had several folks that work in that industry on the show before, and we've had that discussion. Right. You know, as to what does the law actually allow, and how do you provide that, you know, and still be competitive? Because if you provide more than what the law allows, then all of a sudden you're going to be charging more, and people may not choose it. But that whole backstory, you know, you don't even really think about that until you're dealing with a crisis, you know. And at that point, you've got all 3 houses. Let me show you another one. There's one like this one that's gone around all over social media and a lot of other places, and that's just unbelievable. Seeing drainage all the way through the yard and street.
That's on Avenida del Sol.
Yeah.
I've met with Chasman and Katie Johnson. That's their house.
Yeah.
There's a house right north of there. Omar Campus and his wife live there. They're both in the military.
Yeah.
Those houses have flooded multiple times, and you know, when one of these neighborhoods comes up, and you know, I reach out to them or they reach out to me, post something on our Flood Defender page. You know, I try to go talk to them. I try to help them out. I try to help them engage the county. Yeah. Because ultimately, the county, the municipalities, you know, I deal with the city of Pensacola as well. Right. Ultimately, that's where the funding is to fix these problems. Yeah. This situation right here, there are 2 houses that were. This subdivision was built in, what was it, 19, or it was platted in. Trying to figure out where. I think it was 1970. Let me look here. I have it written down. 1974. It's the second edition of Navarre subdivision, and that was back before we had.
I was going to say that was in the 70s. Very few people lived here. You know,
right.
Like.
Well, and that subdivision was platted, and it platted drainage easements. Right. We didn't have wetland regulations and stormwater regulations back then. Right. They just recorded the subdivision. Well, a lot of those areas over there are wetlands. Right. So you got platted lots in wetlands. Yeah. Well, the builder buys one of those lots. He comes in. He's like, "Well, I want to build on this lot." Yeah. Well, if the county doesn't tell him, "Hey, this is a wetland. Right. You can't build here without getting wetland permits." Right. Well, then the house gets built in the wetlands. Right. There's also this particular case here. Yeah. There's 20-foot drainage easements that were platted in that subdivision.
Yeah, it's wild, and it's not just a problem in Navarre, right? You were talking about kind of county officials and stuff. This is up further north, but it's the same issue, right? Even further away from the Gulf, you're still dealing with this kind of flooding.
This is up on, that's the backyard of a brand new house on 10 Mile Road. Yeah. And it's in a minor subdivision. Right. Now, that's a kind of a sore subject, but minor subdivisions are subdivisions on a roadway that you have an existing roadway there and you're dividing up. You're not building any new roads.
Right.
You're just dividing up that subdivision on that
Yeah.
road. So they're not reviewed by Santa Rosa County by their land development code like a regular subdivision would be, where
Yeah.
you're building new roads.
Right.
They don't even require them to record final plats for
Yeah.
them. So that particular subdivision right there, well, they did get a permit through the Water Management District, environmental resource permit, but they really didn't do a good stormwater review. That's
Right.
the backyard.
And that's the result, right? And
Yeah.
you don't know that. I think about, so totally separate, in terms of dealing with the issues, but same reaction for me was when we bought our home, we didn't realize that there was a whole bunch of termites living right underneath it, right? We got our WDO, the wood destroying organism inspection, and they said, oh, we didn't see nothing, right?
Right.
But I was like, oh, okay. And then, we're just living there, happy. Within a couple weeks, we started seeing all these termites and had to, get a spray and everything else and get all them out, and it's this thing where when you buy the home, you don't, there's only so much you can do to try to figure out what issues you're going to anticipate. And you mentioned military folks. A lot of military folks are coming from all over the world, right? They may be coming from Germany or Japan or whatever, right? And so they may be, renting or buying sight unseen, and they're like, hey, we have to move to Florida. That's our next assignment. Have to, right? Get to. But for some of them, it's just like, hey, we got to do this quick, and then all of a sudden they show up here first time living in Florida and they deal with this in a few weeks, right?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because just this past year, House Bill 1049, let's say committee subcommittee, it was House Bill 1049.
Yeah.
This got passed this year.
Yeah.
And it requires flood disclosures.
Flood disclosure, that's right. Yeah.
Now, the flood disclosure is to let the buyer know that, hey, you need to get flood insurance.
Yeah.
There's been past claims
Right.
through the National Flood Insurance Rate Program, and they've received federal assistance. But you don't have to put a flood disclosure unless you've received federal assistance.
Right.
I mean, that's the ordinance that got
Right.
passed. It should be that, hey, you flooded
Yeah.
before, and that information needs to be disclosed.
Yeah. And it's helpful to have, the law of this. You got into a little bit of the science of it. And I was looking at the website, and I found it intriguing because it really captures, why this is an issue beyond the basics. Because, everybody knows that you're going to deal with some level of flooding and obviously a ton of rainfall when you're living this close to the Gulf. Like, that's going to happen.
Right.
But why is it an acute issue beyond just that, right? Like, why do some communities suffer more than others? And you kind of put this in perspective. The first thing that I saw in here was that flood disasters is one of the most common disasters in the entire country. Out of all natural disasters, you're thinking tornadoes and all kinds of other stuff. But hey, look at the flood disasters, and it's increasing. I mean, look at that graph in the past 10 years. It's wild.
$1 trillion since 1980, and what's that,
850
850 billion since 2000.
Yeah.
And it's increasing, and that's an old graph.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a few years
Stuff
old
in
graph. So,
2017.
and it's getting worse. I mean, just last year we had 5 1,000-year storms across the nation. What that means is 1 in 1,000 chance you're going to have a rainfall of that event in a month period.
Right. Yeah.
So we're getting more intense, more longer duration storms, more frequent storms, and we've got to adapt to that.
Right. And, a huge part of that, too, is just because of how urbanized the Panhandle is becoming.
Right.
I mean, we talked about, like, in the 70s and stuff, and then coming here, in the 90s and everything. I remember that, too, like, in the 90s especially. And, I mean, it was nothing like this, like
It's
at all.
all built out.
Yeah, it's so much more built out. I remember Destin barely being on the map, as everybody was going to Panama City and stuff. And now Destin's huge, right? And some of these other places where Navarre's not far behind them, in terms of how urbanized it's becoming. Pace is another one, right? It's getting built out. And
It's everywhere in Florida.
and where's the water supposed to go when you have all these homes that are changing the landscape, right? That's the big challenge to me.
Well, it's traditionally what we've been doing since I don't know the 80s is we've been building stormwater ponds.
Right.
And that helps from a water quality perspective. But you build your drainage system that conveys the water to your stormwater ponds,
Right.
and that handles water quality,
Yeah.
and it handles the flow rate downstream. So you're not flooding properties downstream.
Right.
But then you have also issues where, well, I've got a house that's going in next to an older house. You got a lot of these older neighborhoods like the one on Avenida del Sol.
Yeah.
There are lots on that road there that they built the lots up 3 to 6 feet higher than the existing grade.
Right.
Why did they build it up? Well, they knew it flooded in there.
Right.
Well, those two houses those houses on Avenida del Sol, they were built in 2012.
Right. It's gonna be worse for them. Yeah.
And they were built low.
Yeah.
The builder did not bring in dirt to build those up.
Right.
That's called fill and build.
Right.
Fill and build can be a good thing because it prevents the flooding of the house being built. But when you got houses next door to it
Yeah.
that are lower,
Yeah.
well, all that water goes over to them.
Yeah.
And the problem is there's not a good plan.
Right.
You got to have a plan of what we're gonna do, and
Right.
you got to have codes to protect those people.
Yeah, I think about that in the military all the time. Is you are constantly planning for some type of attack or whatever, right? Even if you're going to go on offense, you're going to have some type of plan and then a backup plan to that, right? Like we're constantly doing that. That's what you need. Even when it's a beautiful day like today, you want to be thinking about, hey, we're hitting flooding season, we're in it. So what if it's not? What are we going to do? And
Well, like
same thing as
just
a
at the
community wide, as you're building the homes.
the last board meeting at Tiger Point, they approved 2 basin studies, watershed analysis.
Yeah.
One of them's in East Navarre, where we're at right now.
Yeah.
The other one's in Florida town. Now, what does a basin study do? They do an inventory of everything. They model everything out. They find out where these problem areas are, and they try to come up with concept solutions.
Right.
And there's a lot goes into those stormwater
Right.
models and basin studies. That helps fix the problems of the past.
Right.
There's a lot of problems in the past. That helps you come up with a plan of how you're going to fix things.
Well, and talking about having a plan, a huge part of that is knowing this is going to occur, right? There's only so much that can be done. Insurance, right? Like that's what we
Yeah.
do is you plan out your insurance policy and you're paying that money so that in the event that, a disaster occurs, you've got insurance to pull. And that's a big part of this is that insurance right now, it's extremely expensive for people in the Panhandle.
And it's going up every
And
year.
it's going up, and not everybody has it, especially for flooding. And that's such a challenge, Chris, for our community, right?
I'll give you some statistics here. And flood insurance is if you're in an area that is susceptible to flooding, it's a low-lying area.
Yeah.
If you're in a high hazard flood zone and you get a mortgage, the insurance mortgage companies require you to have flood insurance.
Right.
But if you're not in those high hazard flood zones, they don't require you to get flood insurance. I'll give you some statistics here. This is on our Flood Defender page. I got it featured. It comes from floodsmart.gov, National Flood Insurance Program. You can go in there and you put a date range in there, like goes from 1980 to 2023. And you can put anywhere in the United States on there. So I plugged in Santa Rosa County. Since 1980, from 1980 to 2023, $11,112,458,769. $11 billion.
Yeah.
That's for 237,416 claims.
Right.
That's for that span of period. Now let me take you to Hurricane Sally. That year was 2020.
Right.
There was 1,034 claims, $33,495,003.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
It is.
Now, that's flood insurance. That's people
Right.
with flood insurance.
Yeah.
Guess what flood insurance is backed by? Your tax dollars.
Right.
Because those insurance premiums that you pay for flooding does not cover
Yeah.
that amount of money for claims.
Yeah. Right.
So you have wind damage insurance for hurricanes, but flood insurance is covered by the federal government.
Right.
Your tax dollars. A lot of people don't know that.
Right.
Right now in the National Flood Insurance Rate Program, and this is I think it's a couple of years old, but they're in a $36 billion deficit.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
our taxes.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about the folks that don't have it. Dee's on here and said the maps tell some they aren't in a flood zone, but then the home floods. And we talked about that. The
Right,
maps aren't
but-
always accurate, right?
right.
So you think, oh, we're fine, we're fine. That could be old information. Right?
Well, give you a good example of that. Christian Wagley put out a report he's with Healthy Gulf. He's another advocacy
Yeah.
group that I work with. Hurricane Sally impacts and opportunities for Northwest Florida, and he basically said that 44%, an astonishing 44% of flood incidents in Santa Rosa County occurred outside of the FEMA designated flood zones, the high hazard areas.
So you think you're safe, and then you don't get flood insurance, and then here you are, right?
Yeah, right.
It's just a
And
disaster.
give you a little more there. There were two. Let's see. What does it say here? Santa Rosa County, they had 427 damage reports that were classified as floods out of 1,527. That's in Hurricane Sally. That's just one storm. Across the nation, we're looking at roughly 50%
Yeah.
that are outside flood zone.
Right.
What does that tell you? Well, it tells you that our flood zone maps are incorrect, for
Right.
one.
Right.
It also tells you that we're not doing good with upgrading of these flood
Yeah.
zones.
Right.
So
Yeah. You said FEMA maps are wrong.
FEMA maps are wrong, and I could go into that subject quite a bit.
Yeah, well, and you think about it because of what we've already talked about. I'm sure there's multiple factors, but development being one. Development changes, your liability when it comes to flooding. And Navarre has grown by over 30% in the past 10 years. It's doubled in the past 20. So it's completely changed, and if you're not keeping pace with that, with what's going on in the region, then of course, that's going to shift. But I do,
Well, those houses on Avenida del
yeah,
Sol,
yeah,
they're not in a high hazard flood zone.
right. And yet they're dealing with the,
They're in a basin. Williams Creek
Yeah.
Basin is the basin. The county, I suggested that the county do a basin study for that one too.
So everybody knows it's an issue. I don't hear hardly anyone disputing that it's an issue. The question is, what do you do about it, right? And that to me was really interesting going through some of the material that you give me and the website and Flood Defenders, because I mean just the very name Flood Defenders tells me there's some type of defense that can be applied
Yes.
to this. It's not just you throw up your hands, throw your money away, and just hope that you got enough, right, to deal with it. There are some proactive things that you talk about, on your site and everything else that can be done. This is a list, y'all. You can take a look, and I'll just read off some of these names, and we'll give a few examples. But you mentioned the stormwater ponds. We've talked about flood insurance, getting the maps right, better standards when it comes to building, development, all of that. Beach renourishment, big one for Navarre. Levees. Let's see what else you got here. The shoreline protection, stormwater drainage, floodgates. I mean, so many things. But bury outs. Looks like maintenance. Pipes, culverts, dishes, all kinds of great stuff. So if you go on his website, you'll see some of these. I want to talk about a couple, though, while I got you here. Let's just talk basic stormwater runoff. So talk to me about that.
Basic stormwater runoff. Well,
Yeah,
so let's just you got vacant property.
yeah,
Well, vacant property, the stormwater doesn't run off vacant property
yeah,
like it does, with asphalt roads and houses and
Right.
buildings and commercial.
right,
Go into the science of it. 0.25 is a runoff coefficient for vacant property. That's let's just say it's wooded property.
right,
Well, when you add asphalt or impervious area, that runoff coefficient is 0.95.
mm-hmm,
You increase the flow rates coming off that property.
right,
So when you develop, you've got to take that additional drainage and you put it into a conveyance system,
right,
and then that conveyance system's got to go somewhere. Well, you take it to stormwater ponds because that's what the state requires is environmental resource permitting. And those ponds are from a standpoint, they're for water quality and to attenuate flows of stormwater. That's actually going to be changing in 2026.
I see.
The governor just passed, I forget what state I can find it in here, but They just passed some new environmental resource permit rules that goes into effect in 2026, and it's to treat nitrogen, and total phosphorus. Because the state's figured out that, hey, our water quality, we're not doing very well with the standards that we have. So the state's they step back and they says, well, we need to change the way we're doing things. It's going to change how stormwater is done. Instead of just running it to a stormwater pond, you're probably going to have to change the way that stormwater pond is done. It may have to be a long stormwater pond with some kind of water quality features into it. You're going to have to put more green infrastructure in, like roadside swells, bioswales, and that type of thing.
And it's even more of a challenge in Navarre because now you're having to redevelop. You're having to go back in and say, okay, there's people living here and all stuff. We're not going to make them leave, but now we're going to have to go back and retrofit, this area and figure out how to install these systems when they really should have been built from the beginning, right? It's an added challenge for sure.
And that's the thing too. 1972 is when the Clean Water Act came out. I think it was around the 80s when we start getting stormwater regulations and that type of thing. We hadn't always had stormwater regulations. The way they used to do stormwater is they just take it to the closest water body.
Right.
Well, they found out that causes water quality problems because you're not treating that water. You get oils and greases and whatever that comes off the roadways. So you got to treat that stormwater. Well, you actually overload our rivers and our creeks.
Right.
Our
bayous. It doesn't take much in Navarre for that to happen.
Well, so and there's. I mean, I could go into this for hours and hours, but. But
having that system that says, okay, we're going to, take it where it needs to go, and thinking through that, like you said, making sure that it's safe for the environment, treat it if need be. We don't have a lot of that in Navarre.
And our municipalities need to invest in stormwater. I mean, I hear all the time, traffic. Sidewalks. We need sidewalks and we need to improve our traffic. Well, we need to pave our roads.
Right.
You don't hear a whole lot now. You're hearing it more now.
Yeah.
Because people are now flooding and they're speaking up about it.
But now it's a pound of cure, right?
Right. Now we're trying to fix something that we've already allowed to get messed up.
Right.
We really don't have a traffic problem here. Go to California.
Yeah.
Go to Atlanta. Go to Miami. Now, okay, you have to wait through a couple of lights. The really times you have traffic problems is when you have an accident or we're having an evacuation.
Yeah.
Because we have a hurricane coming in.
But it's a similar problem. I mean, you've got all these people here, right? Everybody, no one's going anywhere, right? That's where we live. But now because of all that urbanization, we have to go back through and think through a system in order to deal with,
But why don't they spend money on flooding?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you why. Flooding ain't sexy until you have to have that storm.
That's what we talked about right at the beginning. Until you face it.
A commissioner gets reelected because he goes out there and paves that road and he puts that sidewalk in and he does that traffic intersection improvement. But when you put a stormwater system in, you got a pipe goes in the ground. You got a pond over in the corner.
Right. Until it's
they don't see it every day, but when you got a new paved road or a new sidewalk, you're walking down there. I think I might need to reelect that commissioner because he's done such a good job doing these improvements.
That you see.
But what about the people that are flooding?
Yeah.
And that's where I come in. Is I try to help these neighborhoods have a voice.
Yeah. Not forget. Hey, remember. You're still living in a place that could have another Hurricane Sally around the corner. What are we doing to get ready for it? Another one in the beach, right? They deal with this all the time. Beach renourishment is a big one. Like you talked about, it takes some municipal government because it's so expensive to do.
Beach renourishment is very expensive.
Here in Navarre, yeah, absolutely. Because I remember during Hurricane Sally and some of these other storms, it just didn't take long at all for the beach to completely fill up and get overwhelmed, right? Up to Juana's and we mentioned Andy D's, those places. I mean, they are just a few feet away from the Gulf.
Right.
Between that and the Sound, right? If you're not taking care of the beach, and you're really not helping yourself in terms of barriers.
And you have storm surge. Storm surge is what causes that beach erosion.
Right.
Now, there's a lot of shoreline projects that, and they do cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
But you can mitigate that storm surge by doing a beach renourishment. What are the oyster bed reefs? There's some grants that the county has gotten
Right.
here in Santa Rosa County. That helps out
Yeah.
with water quality
Yeah.
too. But
That's really cool.
you can build different reefs that helps with breaking up those wave energy that comes in.
Right.
So living shorelines.
Yeah.
They're doing that in Pensacola quite a bit. In Escambia County, they've got several projects going on over there. But there's a lot of grant funding coming in.
Right. Right.
Now, one of the things with grant funding, what do you got there? Stormwater ponds?
Stormwater ponds is another one. You know, you need the grants, like you said, as you're doing redevelopment, because now you're, you know, in Navarre we've got so many houses. There's so little land available. Now you're looking at redevelopment. How do we put in a pond like this that doesn't exist?
Well, notice that pond in that picture. It has a long.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is a they call them treatment trains. If you have a long way for that water to go through a system, like let's say you have a roadside swales, roadside ditches. Well, that takes up more area versus curb and gutter, which is called gray infrastructure. Roadside swales, bioswales, those are bioretention.
Mm-hmm.
Goes down a ditch and goes to a pond that has a long pond, and you can put floating islands in there, that type of stuff if you have a wet retention pond. But you got different kind of ponds. You got dry ponds.
Right.
You have wet retention ponds. You can have a combination thereof.
You can have a park that's, you know, double use.
Yeah,
right?
that's a big thing that one of the commissioners in Escambia County has been really pushing, and is having stormwater parks.
Right.
You know, you get a bang for your buck.
Right.
Not only do you have a park there,
Right.
but you have a stormwater facility.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the rules
Very
with
smart.
local option sales tax is you can actually maintain a stormwater park, a park with LOST money, but you can't maintain a drainage system with it. But if it's a stormwater park,
If it's both, then there you go.
then you get more bang for
So
your
that
buck.
that's smart growth when we talk about it.
Right.
Smart growth is, let's think through this. What's the best way to do it? How can we do something that appeals to, like you said, the residents, the politicians love it because they get to celebrate this thing that can be used every day, while at the same time you're also planning for whatever disasters down the road.
But you can't get these grants unless you have money in it. You
Right.
got to have skin in the game. I've heard Kerry Smith say this a couple of times when working with DOT. You got to have skin in the game.
Yeah.
You got to start out with basin studies. You come up with concept plans. You know where you need to spend your money. You have, and you prioritize which project needs to be done first.
Right.
That's what our municipalities need to be doing.
Right.
I know they did a little Santa Rosa County capital investment. They're expecting to spend $360 million in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
A big part of that is a bridge.
Right.
You need a new bridge over here
Right.
out to the beach.
Right.
But I don't think this $360 million is actually. I don't think that represents the needs, the drainage needs in Santa Rosa County. After April 2014 storm in Escambia County, where we had 22 to 26 inches of rain, they came up with a stormwater advisory team. Escambia County's done 18 of 41 basin studies.
Yeah.
That stormwater advisory team recommended that we put a drainage needs assessment list together.
Yeah.
Now, that list was 280 something projects for, I can't remember, $480 million. And that was in 2015. When there's been more projects added to that list since
I've seen
then,
it. Yeah.
and you're probably looking at $650 million in Escambia County. Santa Rosa County says that they need to spend $43 million in the next 5 years.
Right.
If they really did a drainage needs assessment, it's going to be more than $43 million.
But you're kind of keen on it is there are solutions out there. They're expensive, right?
Yes.
But there are solutions. You just got to have the political will to get them done. And to kind of break this down in kind of a smaller fashion, I think this is one of the solutions you came up with, right, for one of the homes that flood. Yeah, I'm going to bring this up so everybody can see it on the full screen. So take a look at this. This was the at the PJ Boulevard. So we showed that first house that was flooding.
Right.
Right. This was one of those solutions that you came up. So I'll let you kind of walk us through this.
Basically, and this has a lot of story. There's a lot to this. Basically, you had a lady at 2969 PGA Boulevard, and she spoke in front of the Board of County Commissioners.
Yeah.
The whole time they were built the two houses right next to it on the east side of that mount. Actually, that would have been north of that way.
Yeah.
These two lots right here. They were building these two houses here. There's about 9 driveways all the way down before it goes into the golf course and to the wetland.
He's pointing at those green areas where you could have pond areas, right? That's where you.
Well, the little dotted green line is the county needs to restore the drainage system.
That's right.
Because there's only 3 types of conveyance systems that you really have.
Right.
You have a curb and gutter.
Yep.
You have a roadside swale.
Right.
Or you have a ditch with driveway pipes.
Right.
And what happened in this particular case is because this was getting built out, and you remember I mentioned fill and build.
Yeah.
Well, these 2 lots right next to her house were low.
Right.
And it's kind of a sandy soil, so that's where a lot of the water ponded. All these houses that got built down the road here, because the water flows in that direction over toward that blue area.
Yeah.
Those driveways, there used to be a ditch there.
Right.
Well, when those houses got built,
Yeah.
they filled in the ditch and built driveways flat on grade.
Right.
They did not put a drainage
So
system
you
in.
lose that.
Now,
whatever
why didn't
system
they
you
do a
had.
drainage system? Why didn't they retain that drainage system?
Yeah.
Because the county didn't make them do it.
Right, and that's where the requirements. The county is built to take care of non-urban areas. Right.
Right.
It is built.
Well,
for
they
rural
should be
areas,
taking it everywhere.
But we're looking at a very urbanized area here in PGA Boulevard, right? You're looking at all those homes.
Right. So I went to the Board of County Commissioners and I submitted this plan to them. And this is just a concept. It's an idea. It actually has 2 concepts. One, you restore the drainage along the road.
Yeah.
And you take it down and you build either some little stormwater ponds right here before it goes into this. That's part of the golf course, but it has a wetland soil. Palestine is a wetland soil. Or you could go behind the houses, acquire a drainage easement behind the houses, and then you didn't have to tear up all the driveways. But then you're looking at privacy fences behind people's yards. But then you have to acquire easements from all those property owners.
Right.
This problem is yet to be fixed.
Right. Right.
I gave it to the county. It's probably been 2.5 years ago.
Right.
Almost 3.
But it shows, Chris, that there's solutions out there, right? Like,
well, definitely there's solutions,
out
but
there.
it
There's
requires
things
money.
It requires money
And political will.
and the political will, to do it. And that's difficult when you look at the county, such a broad area, right, to cover. It's difficult when you think about how people aren't focused on these issues until it's too late, and now you're having to fix it. And that's what I appreciate what you do all the time, which is, bring this up when we're not thinking about it and remind us, hey, it's a sunny day. Cool. That's a day to prepare for the future, right? So that we don't have to deal with this as much. So we have some type of system in place that limits our liability. So awesome stuff, man, that you're doing.
Well, I don't know how much time we got left, but I try to attend all the Santa Rosa County Board meetings and all the Escambia County Board meetings. Sometimes they have them at the same time. When neighborhoods come together and they reach out to me and they've got issues, I try to come up with ideas.
Yeah.
Sometimes the idea is, hey, county, you need to do a study of this.
Right.
The people on Avenida del Sol, I mean, the solution to that may actually be a buyout. There are grants where you can get through the federal government called Hazard Grant Mitigation Program.
Yeah.
That money comes out after you have hurricane events. You have a fairly declared disaster. But you have to have skin in the game.
Right.
Usually HMGP grant requires 25% match. Now,
It's not free.
It's not free.
Right.
Now, there's ways that you can do something called global match and get 100% federal backing on it, but that requires you to put up another project of similar ability. There's also something called flood mitigation assistance.
Yeah.
Flood mitigation assistance is a program where you buy out the house, but that's for repetitive lost properties.
Right.
Now, one of the things is, what is a repetitive loss property?
Yeah.
Repetitive loss property is defined by houses that are homes that have flooded repetitively, and they filed claims with our federal government.
Yeah.
That's how you're just because you've flooded multiple times. If you haven't filed claims through flood insurance or some SBA type of loan, and you don't carry that flood insurance, well, you don't qualify for those grants.
Yeah.
Now, places like I believe it's South Carolina, they have, and we have a group up there. They're called Horry County Rising, but they're actually flood defenders up there.
Yeah.
But they have programs where you're not going through the federal government; it's local funding.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about local funding, and you have these storms come in, you damage a home and during flooding, you want to be able to buy that house out within 3 to 6 months after a storm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can do that if you have local funding.
Mm-hmm.
If you're applying for these federal grants, it can take a year, 2
gonna
years
say,
to get to buy that
Federal
house
government
out.
didn't move fast.
Well, then you've rebuilt that house because you got to live somewhere,
Right.
and then you're paying for a rebuilt house.
Right.
So we're spending tons of money on trying to fix this stuff, and there's better ways to do it.
Right. Yeah. No, you definitely demonstrated that, and we just scratched the surface. I mean, I know there's so much.
Oh,
more.
I could, I could talk
And
about this for hours.
That's why I love the the website that you've got and all that kind of stuff. But the specific plan to me of breaking it down for a neighborhood makes it real for folks. I want to go through some of these comments here.
Sure.
I've had a few come in. I appreciate you guys rolling with me and working through the technical difficulties we've had. So D says, show up, stand up, and speak up, tell your story. And that's what they've done.
D is the lady that I was telling you about. She's one of my number
awesome.
one flood defenders.
Nice.
She's been to 40 meetings.
That's awesome.
And just to let you know, to get into some of these solutions, there's a creek behind her house. It runs from Highway 98 through Lillian Highway. It goes through several subdivisions, and the creek runs back behind her house. Now, when the subdivisions that she lives in along this creek were built, they didn't have flooding.
Yeah.
They started flooding around 2012.
Right.
And her house was flooded several times before she moved into it. She didn't know it flooded, but it had 40-something inches of rainfall in her house, depth in her house.
That's insane.
That was in the April 2014 storm. Now, they disclosed that, this house had flooding in the fine print when you buy the house.
Yeah.
But they didn't tell them it had 40 inches of flooding in the house. She flooded in Hurricane Sally.
Yeah.
She flooded in June 16th of last year.
Yeah.
We had a freak storm, I think it was 14 to 16 inches of rain in 12 hours. But that just goes to show you our rainfall is getting more intense.
Right. And more and more people are dealing with this now, right?
In Escambia County, Santa Rosa County, we're using 1979 rainfall data that DOT published.
Unbelievable.
I got DOT to, I pushed them a little bit. For the last 6 years, they've been referring to NOAA Atlas 14 and the 1979 rainfall curves.
Talking about maps, Doug is on here, and he says, this is why we used NOAA flood maps from Hurricane Ivan to decide where we would build our house. Some other places are wetlands that should never have been built on. You've been saying that.
Well, even those flood zone maps are incorrect. The people on Aventino del Sol, they're not in a high hazard flood zone.
That's right.
But they flood.
Right. D says we live close to wetland, and from 92 to 2011, our home never flooded. What happened? Bayou Marcus Creek, tributary B, is full of sediments, trash, overgrowth. And you kind of told her the story. Decades of no maintenance.
Well, that's another issue. Wetlands.
Yeah.
We have regulations that protect the wetlands.
Yeah.
But then we allow people permits to build or encroach on them, and there's not really some good regulations for management of those wetlands.
Yeah.
When subdivisions get platted, they put those wetlands in a conservation easement because a good example, Rosemary Sound, right down the street here. It's a subdivision going to take a couple of years to build, and they're having flooding issues on both sides of the subdivision.
Yeah.
Well, when you get a dredge and fill permit to impact wetlands, you have to mitigate that impact to those wetlands.
Right.
So they put a conservation easement over this land. But guess who they dedicate the conservation easement to?
Who's that?
The homeowners association.
Oh, I see.
Right here in Santa Rosa County, they just got a grant for what 450 something acres.
Right.
That the federal government put grant money in to buy wetland property.
Yeah.
When we got wetlands that are getting put in conservation easements all over the county when they do these subdivisions where they have wetland impacts and they have to do mitigation.
Yeah.
Why don't they donate that wetland to the county?
Right.
So you can go in there and manage them.
Right.
That creek there, Bayou Marcus Branch B Creek.
That's real quick. That's a big difference between an HOA and an actual municipality, right?
Right.
Whether it's a town, a city, or a county, is that those municipalities have access to the grants you've talked about. They can work with the other governments. HOA, not so much, right? Like a lot more difficult for them to do those things.
And you know, that's another thing, private and public. You know, you want to live in a public subdivision.
Yeah.
You can, because your roads get maintained. If you live in a private subdivision and you have a HOA association, well, who's going to pay to resurface those roads? Well, you are. Who's going to maintain those ponds? Well, you are. Who's going to maintain your drainage system when it floods? You are.
Oh, trust me.
Unless you go through an MSBU and you get the county to take them over.
Right. Yeah.
So that is an option.
Yeah.
Back to that Bayou Marcus Branch B. Why do they flood now?
Mm-hmm.
We've got years and years of things being built that go through that one creek.
Right.
And nobody is out there managing that creek. You have hurricanes, trees fall down. There's 18, 24-inch trees that have fell down across that creek. Nobody's came in there and taken those things out. So you get debris that builds up in there. Now, the county did do one project in there. They did a debris removal project within some unopened right-of-way that ran across this creek. Why did they do that project? Because Dee and her neighborhood kept showing up to board meetings going, hey, we flood, we flood, we flood.
Right.
I give them flood defender shirts.
Yeah.
I've got signs. You go out to her neighborhood, half the houses in her neighborhood's got signs in front of them. We are a flood defender.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a flood defender.
Yeah, I also take some level of community, right? Like, don't wait until this happens to you. There's enough people that are watching now live, this has happened to, right? Like,
right.
And you see the rain, you see the flooding, all that stuff, you know. So stand with them, right?
Right.
In order to get some action, because that's what it takes. You're totally right.
Right. So the county did a little project. They did debris removal. They pulled out big old concrete blocks that somebody had dumped in that wetland that restricted the flow in there. And you got years and years of projects where they're just, I mean, there was one ditch in there that the county did. It used to be a grass ditch. Well, they concreted it because they had flooding in there. Where's the water go? It goes downstream to this creek.
Right.
Then you got all these commercial businesses and new subdivisions that got built. Well, remember I was telling you 1979 rainfall data?
Mm-hmm.
They're using old rainfall data to do these designs.
Yeah.
And it's not about, okay, well, I did a stormwater pond that, and we're not having any problems with this subdivision that I permitted and designed. It's not about what happens there as much so as it what happens downstream.
Yeah.
When you accumulate all these developments that are using old rainfall data, almost 50 years old.
That's unbelievable, man.
Now, and right now there's something called the Floods Act and the Precept Act that Congress passed. The American Flood Coalition helped get that. Even though Atlas 14 rainfall data, it only goes up to 2012.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take in Hurricane Sally, April 2014 storm event, June 2012.
Like we said, all the development that's happened.
All these different storm events that we had, it doesn't take those statistical rainfall data and put it in there.
That's wild.
The difference for a 100-year, 24-hour storm is 2.76 inches, almost 3 inches for a 100-year, 24-hour storm right here in the Pensacola area at the rain gauge there. So the Floods Act, Congress passed and they said, well, NOAA, this data that you have for rainfall data, you need to update that every 10 years. So in 2026, we're going to have new rainfall data.
Yeah, which is going to be shocking. Yeah.
And they're also going to be trying to look forward to future
Yeah.
in that. So
But yeah, so Dee said it really well. She's strength in numbers, right? And that's what we're talking about. And you've given us a way to do that. So with Flood Defenders, we've got the website, right? Highly recommend you guys jump on that if you're not. Flood Defenders,
Flood Defenders Panhandle.
yeah, Panhandle. That's
our
what you do.
Facebook page.
Your Facebook page. You said you do a lot of work on there. But there's a place to sign up to get alerts, all that kind of stuff. Get
Well,
notifications and all that.
I really
So
do all my
awesome.
stuff on Facebook.
Yeah.
We have the web page that gives information about Flood Defenders. It's flooddefenders.org. But the Facebook page is where I do
That's where you do most of
everything.
your stuff. Awesome.
But and if you don't have Facebook, you can. My email address is cacurb@gmail.com.
Awesome.
My phone number is 850-777-9115. Call me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
Learn
know,
about this stuff.
I have neighborhoods. I have 20-something neighborhoods going on in Escambia County. I've got a few over here in Santa Rosa County, and I get it. It takes a lot of time to attend these board meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Santa Rosa County has most of their board meetings in the daytime.
No, I know.
People work.
I've been to several of them. Yeah, I know.
You know,
I take
I've
a
seen
ton
you
of
at 'em,
vacation time.
you know,
I'm running out of days.
and you got to take off time to work just to go to a board meeting, so you only get to talk for 2 minutes. Oh, okay. Well, that's great. So you can also engage the county by sending emails.
Right.
They have complaint lines.
Yeah.
And I have links on our Flood Defender Facebook page where you can go in there and send complaints in.
Nancy said it earlier. We appreciate what you do. We appreciate you being at those meetings where we can't always do that. So just like she said, your knowledge and experience are so important to us and kind of help catch us up on the things that we're missing while we're doing all this stuff. So thanks so much for being here, Chris. I appreciate it.
Well, I could talk a whole lot more.
We're going to have you on because, like we're talking about, at some point this is going to be another issue that everybody's talking about, and they're going to be asking questions, and we reference in this broadcast, and hopefully a lot more with you on here. So thanks for being here. Thanks to everybody who jumped in. Dee says, and Chris really knows flooding, and he's a good guy. Absolutely. I believe that 100%, and I've experienced it now. So it's great to hang out with you, man. Thanks for being here. So make sure that you join.
Dee does have, not only did they do the debris removal project, they're doing buyouts in her neighborhood where they're they've got grants. Matter of fact, Escambia County has $106 million worth of grants right now that they're working on.
Nice.
Santa Rosa County don't have that many in grants.
Yeah, I wish.
But they could.
Yeah, if we push for it, right?
Well, I mean, you got to invest in your staff. I mean, of course, Escambia County has a problem with not having enough people to run that $106 million.
Right.
In addition, they're putting out a drainage basin study for the Bayou Marcus Branch B to come up with more solutions other than buying out. Buying out is the last resort.
Right. Yeah. Somebody was on here talking about how it takes a long time and stuff. But thank you again for sorting through all that kind of stuff, giving us some options. We'll have a lot more discussions about this, I'm sure, coming up. But thanks for being here, Chris. FloodDefenders.org, his Facebook page, Flood Defenders, Panhandle, join that one. For us, Preserve Navarre Live, we're on Facebook as well. So we got a page as well as a group, YouTube, Instagram. We're on all those things. Our website's preservenavarre.com. Thank y'all so much. If you've got other guests that you want us to interview, let us know. If you got more questions for Chris, send them my way or directly to him. We'll be happy to route those to him. But thank y'all so much for being here. Thanks for getting involved, all the great comments. Y'all have a great night. We'll see you next Thursday.